Hi there guys, Vino here and welcome to this Vino Plunk Productions and welcome to my preliminary thoughts on Star Trek Picard. So I decided tonight, because I've been wanting to watch the rest of it for a while, to finish watching Star Trek Picard. I started when it came out originally. In fact, I waited till all the episodes were available online because I prefer to binge watch stuff, and Star Trek Picard is one of those series that, yes, it's on Amazon. Over here it's shown on Amazon Prime. It was shown on CBS All Access in America, or other places, I do believe. But it's one of those shows that gets updated on a weekly basis. So I waited till I think all of the episodes have gone on to Amazon Prime and decided to binge watch it. I stopped on episode 6 for whatever reason. Maybe something else popped up or cropped up, and decided to watch the final 4 to 5 episodes that I needed to watch. And one thing I'm going to say is I actually really enjoyed it. I will say one thing: it is a massive fan. It's very fan servicey. There are guest stars that I'm not necessarily going to spoil that are in the show. It is a very different Star Trek to Next Generation, which of course it takes on from. It follows on from. It follows on how many years after the events of Star Trek Nemesis, if you know that film. Not many people particularly like that film, but hey, it follows on from the events of that film. And it takes some very key episodes from the Next Generation series and basically goes with it and creates a whole series out of those very particular episodes. There is also a guest character from the Voyager era. Again, I'm not necessarily going to spoil, but the whole thing, I think, was, for me, very entertaining. The first few episodes are very dark, very bleak. There's even some body horror in there. It is not the Star Trek of old, but I don't think the Star Trek of old is going to come back anytime soon. There are lots of hardcore Star Trek fans out there that believe this and Star Trek Discovery are not how they want Star Trek going forward, because they're both a lot darker than what came before it. They're a lot bleaker than what came before it. They believe the optimism that Star Trek, that sort of utopian kind of idea that Gene Roddenberry was so fond of, is kind of lost on these shows. But then they're not made by Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry is long since passed away. Yes, I do believe either Discovery or Picard, one of them, I can't remember which, is actually his son, is heavily involved with. But they're not the Roddenberry era of Star Trek. They're different. They're darker. A lot of shows that are on telly, on streaming platforms, wherever they may be, take on the feelings and the ideologies of the time in which they're made. And at this precise moment in time, or a year or two ago when Picard was made, we have a lot more kind of cynical view on things. We don't. I would even go as far as to say that I've watched a large amount of Next Generation, a large amount of Voyager and the original series and all the other series of Star Trek that came since. I'd even say that Deep Space Nine was beginning to get into the darker elements of Star Trek, and of course by then Roddenberry had passed away, so they were getting away from sort of the idealistic view that Roddenberry had on life. And unfortunately, however optimistic that it is, it's not real. Life doesn't exist. We would all love to have a utopian world that was realised in Star Trek, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to happen, or it's going to take a very long time, and a lot of us will be long since gone by the time that, if that even happens. However, I really did enjoy Star Trek Picard. Some of the decisions they made and some of the episodes, I'm like, huh? But and there is a little bit of ancestry in there. There is some very suggestive stuff throughout it, but I think ultimately it paints a picture. It's a very philosophical sort of series. Do those questions go anywhere? No, they don't. They are questions that have been asked and maybe even answered many times before when it comes to philosophy. But at the end of the day, just because they're philosophical questions that everybody should know de facto and should know without having to be necessarily shoved down their throat again and again and again, these kind of philosophies are taught to you by your parents, by school, by just general society. At the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to be reminded of those philosophies, of those ideologies, of the preciousness of life, of what life means to certain people, that each person's perspective is different, and how we live our lives, how we go about our lives, of different, who we love, who we hate, who we, decide to get on with, despite beliefs and differences being not the same, not combined. All of that kind of stuff is sometimes nice to be reminded of. I liked the darker aspect of Picard because I like darker aspect of things. That's just the way I'm wired, I'm geared. It's just the way I am. The fight scenes were really good. The action was really good in it. It brought back and explored the philosophies of an old adversary of the generation era. I enjoyed it. Is it ultimately very shallow? Probably. A lot of what it does, what it tells you, has been done and said before. Does that make it a bad series? Not necessarily. I think it was acted well, obviously produced well. CBS, who are of course owned by Paramount, have a hell of a lot of money that they can throw at these things, so it was always going to be lavish in that aspect. And I think it was nice to see Patrick Stewart back in the shoes of Jean-Luc Picard, and it was good to see his very ramshackle, is ramshackle the word? Ensemble crew that he, had in the series. That is a far cry from the crew he had during the Generation era. I think it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the perfectly unified crew that he had on the Enterprise, because that kind of ideology doesn't exist, if I'm being honest. And plus, they weren't all employed by Starfleet. Maybe that's a mini spoiler. So they're not going to be so obedient and loyal to following orders. They're going to be a bit more rebellious and a bit more, not entirely yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. And I like that about it. I like the disparate nature of the series. Yes, it felt like a broken Star Trek series, but I got a feeling it was supposed to feel like a broken Star Trek series. Picard is a broken man. He's broken from the ghosts of the past that still haunt him today, from his time as Locutus of the Borg, as the time where Data made the sacrifice at the end of Star Trek Nemesis. He's haunted by a lot of decisions he made in the past, and he's trying his best to rectify them. And I think what ultimately Star Trek Picard teaches us is we're not all perfect, and no one should be perfect. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know a lot of people out there didn't enjoy it for whatever reason. You're welcome to your opinion, as I'm welcome to mine. I look forward to Series 2, and I think now I'm going to start getting through Star Trek Discovery, because I've kind of left that behind, and I got some real, yearning for some more modern Star Trek. Having said that, I don't know whether this is to put my badge on my top. I do own all of the original series, Star Trek, Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine on DVD. I love the old stuff, but there's nothing necessarily wrong with the new stuff. It's just different. Anyway, guys, please take care, and until next time, you enjoy the rest of your day. Ta-ra.